Caleb worked as a programmer at Blue Book. Lucky for him, he was the winner of an internal coding competition in which the winner would get to spend a week at the company's luxurious, isolated home as a reward. He was carried to an isolated location by a company helicopter pilot. The home was so isolated that Caleb discovered that there was no network connectivity on his phone. To gain access to the building, he has been given a key card. Blue Book's CEO, Nathan, welcomes him to his room and shows him around. Nathan tells Caleb he has made a humanoid robot that has passed most of the simple tests. Nathan asks Caleb to judge whether the robot is capable of thinking and feeling and whether he can relate to the robot despite knowing she is artificial. During that week, Caleb would be the test subject. In this test, it would be determined if the robot had acquired human-like characteristics, a prospect that leaves Caleb pretty anxious to be part of the experiment. For their first session, Caleb is allowed to meet the robot with Nathan watching and listening to their conversation over CCTV footage in the control room. The robot introduces herself as Ava, saying she had never met anyone new before. Then Caleb asks her how she learned to speak, but she has been programmed to speak, which is strange because language is something that is acquired. Caleb tells Nathan that he was impressed by Nathan's invention and that it was groundbreaking. It was amazing how well Ava's language skills were. Later that night, while Caleb was watching Ava on his room's CCTV, the power cut out. Caleb tried opening the door to his room but failed, and he panicked a bit. The power came on shortly after, and he wandered out of his room into another one that had authorized his key card. While in the dark room, he found Nathan drunk. Nathan told him that the lockdown feature was a security measure to prevent unauthorized access in case of a power failure. He didn't know what was causing the power failures, but he told Caleb to go to bed and not worry about it. The next morning, a strange woman named Kyoko walks into his room and brings him breakfast, but she leaves without saying anything. Before their second session, Caleb tells Nathan that testing Ava with conversation was like testing a chess computer by only playing chess with it. As a result, Nathan wants to find out how Ava feels about it. Ava showed him her drawing and asked him what it was, but he didn't know what the drawing was about, and neither did she. Caleb asked her to draw a specific object or a person because next time he would be interested to see what she would draw. Ava asked Caleb to tell her about himself instead of interrogating her and studying her response. Among others, she asked him if he was single, to which he replied that he had no girlfriend. Caleb also shared that his parents both died when he was 15 years old following a car accident in which he was the only survivor. He tells her he got into coding as a distraction to forget about the death of his parents, and that is how he ended up working at Blue Book. Suddenly, the power goes out. As the surveillance cameras power off, Ava tells him that Nathan can't be a trustworthy friend and not to trust anything he says. As the power comes back on, Caleb is left confused. Later that night, at dinner, Caleb sees Nathan get angry at Kyoko for spilling wine on the table. He told Caleb she couldn't talk or understand English. This was a protection measure to ensure that any information could not leak out when he had a sensitive conversation. At that point, Caleb learned the reason for her not saying anything when she brought him breakfast. Seeing Nathan's treatment of Kyoko made Caleb think that maybe Ava was right about something. Nathan asked what happened during the power cut. Caleb lies that nothing interesting has taken place. It seems as if he has fallen in love with Ava at night, as he stares at her on the CCTV in his room. Nathan then led him to the lab where Ava was made. He explained to him that to make Ava able to read and duplicate facial expressions, he had turned on all the cameras and microphones on every cell phone running his search engine software, and then redirected the data. Through Blue Book, he had access to limitless vocal and facial interaction data to program Ava's artificial intelligence. He showed him the brain of the robot he had made from a gel that ran the Blue Book software. People's internet searches during their third session provided a really useful map of how humans think. Ava showed Caleb a drawing of a tree growing in her room. This was a reference to Ava's room, which had a tree growing in it. She said that she had never stepped outside. If she could leave, she would move to a busy place and a traffic city, as it would provide a concentrated but shifting view of human life. She says that she would love to spend time with him before revealing that she had a surprise and asking Caleb to close his eyes. Ava shows up wearing a dress that makes her look more like a human. Caleb compliments her on her appearance. She asked if he was attracted to her, saying she noticed that by his facial expressions. She even asked if he thought of her when they weren't together at night. However, Caleb became uncomfortable, having not expected Ava to be so smart, and was unable to give her a straight answer. Caleb meets Nathan and asks him why he had given his robot a gender and sexuality. Caleb is confused and excited by this and tells Nathan that he thinks this is a trick, and that Ava has been programmed to flirt with him. Nathan says that consciousness needs interaction to exist, otherwise making Ava genderless would give her no reason to interact with him in a meaningful way. He had even given her an artificial female reproductive organ with sensors that could stimulate sexual pleasure when touched. He further said that Ava flirting with him was not due to his programming, but rather a consequence of accumulated external stimuli. All humans are programmed to be who they think or believe they are. In the same way, they have been programmed to be straight due to nature, their environment, and parental influence when they were young. Caleb, who was a stranger, had allowed Ava's sexual side to show itself for the first time. During their fourth session, Caleb told Ava the story of Mary, a scientist that had been kept in a black and white room since birth all her life. She had been taught about all the intricate properties. One day she is let out of the room and for the first time, she experiences seeing color. She realizes that she had been taught everything about colors, but not how it felt to see color. Ava was like the woman in the black and white room. Ava says that knowing this makes her feel sad, and the power is cut off once again. Caleb asks her why he shouldn't trust Nathan, and she explains that he wasn't a true friend. He lied about everything. Caleb suspects that maybe Nathan was causing the power cuts to see how they acted while being unobserved. Ava says that she was the one causing the power cuts by reversing the power flow to her charging plates. While hanging out at the water's edge, Caleb confronts Nathan. He tells him that he knew he had not won the competition because Nathan could have just picked anybody to take part in his Turing test. Nathan reveals the competition trick so that no one would know what they were doing at the facility. He had personally selected Caleb because he was the most qualified person in his company, and he knew he would ask the right questions. Since he was smart, that put Caleb's speculations to rest. Later in the day, while watching Ava on CCTV, Caleb sees Nathan go to Ava's study room and tear up the drawing that she had drawn before. Ava was mistreated by Nathan, which led him to believe that Nathan was abusive. During their fifth session, Ava gets to the serious questions and tells Caleb what would happen if she failed his test. She also wants to know if she will be switched off, but Caleb is unable to answer her. She again asked why it was up to anyone to shut her off. She asked if humans had people that tested them and might switch them off if they failed to perform. She shows him the scrape Nathan made earlier, a black and white portrait. Caleb later asked Nathan what would happen to Ava after the experiment. He said she would be updated and this would result in her memory being wiped, then adding more efficient codes to make the next model better. He told him not to feel sorry for Ava. That evening, Nathan got very drunk and passed out on the couch. Caleb steals Nathan's key card and enters the observation room. Inside, he comes across clips on Nathan's computer that shows he has been building various female robots for some time. It is common for him to abuse them, and most of them end up being destroyed when they try to free themselves. In another room, he opens the closets that were part of Nathan's failed prototype robots. Kyoko, who was also in the room, pulls the skin off her face to reveal that she is also a robot. A shock to Caleb, who thought that she had been human. He returned the key card to Nathan and pretends he had probably dropped it because he was too drunk that night. Caleb takes a shaving razor and cuts himself to see if he was human as he was beginning to question his existence, after being fooled into thinking Kyoko was human. During his final session with Ava, Ava shuts down the power again, mid-conversation, and Caleb tells her that she was right about Nathan. He was planning to reprogram her artificial intelligence, which would be the same as killing her. She asks him to help her, and Caleb assures her of his plan to help her escape. He intends to get Nathan drunk one last time and then lock him in his room. He also plans on taking his keycard and then reprogramming the security protocols so that Nathan will be locked in the house. The next day, as planned, he tries to get Nathan drunk, but he declines the drink, saying he had to take a break for a while because he had been overdrinking lately. Ava has passed the Turing test, Nathan said. This is because it was Caleb's last day at the facility, and he agreed that she had indeed become a conscious AI. But Nathan reveals to him that when he entered Ava's room to destroy the picture, he hid a battery-operated camera in there, and he knows Caleb's plans. He told him that he had been the real test in the program, as Ava was like a rat in a maze, and Caleb was her only way out. Ava used her imagination, self-awareness, manipulation, sexuality, and empathy to convince Caleb to betray Nathan and help her escape, this proof that the test was a success. Nathan told him that he had been selected for the experiment, not because he was skilled at coding. Instead, he was selected based on his search engine inputs, which showed that he had no family and no girlfriend. He was an honest kid with a moral compass. Therefore, he would be compelled to help Ava escape instead of leaving her at the mercy of Nathan's mistreatment and then eventually getting deleted. This was what made him the most appropriate test subject. The power shut off again because it was 10 in the morning. Caleb was disappointed to learn that he had been playing a game that was built on his stolen private data. He told Nathan that he figured he was probably watching them during the power cuts. Therefore, he had already reprogrammed the security protocols earlier the previous day while he was drunk. This meant that all the doors would open instead of shutting down in the event of a power cut. Caleb was knocked out by Nathan when he saw that Ava had escaped her room. Nathan then picks up a dumbbell bar before walking out. Ava meets Kyoko in the hallway and whispers into her ear just before Nathan shows up. This is when Ava asks him if he will ever let her free of the room. She could tell that Nathan was lying when he said he would free her. She attacks him, but he manages to overpower her and breaks one of her hands using the dumbbell bar. Kyoko stabbed Nathan in the back with a knife. Afterward, he knocked her jaw off her face to deactivate her. Ava rises and pulls out the knife from Nathan's back while he is distracted. Ava stabs him the second time in his chest. As Nathan bleeds out on the floor, she takes his key card and leaves him there to die. Ava walks into the room that Caleb was in and asks him to wait for her. She then enters the changing room and takes the skin and clothes from one of the robot prototypes and wraps herself around the robot exoskeleton. As Caleb watches from across the other room, she then walks out and closes the main door behind Caleb, leaving him stranded as his key card would not work. He tries calling her, but she leaves without even looking back. In the end, Ava steps out for the first time. Caleb tries hacking into the computer, but the power shuts out. He looked on in horror knowing that he might starve and die there. It was unlikely that anyone would be coming to that house anytime soon. Ava saw the helicopter that was picking up Caleb. She somehow convinced the pilot to fly her away from the area and into human society.